Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Committee, the whole meeting for Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. We have an amended agenda before us. And I would...
Land acknowledgement?
Oh.
Call to order?
Call to order, land acknowledgement. That's not there. I'd like to reiterate that we are living, working, and playing on the unceded territories of the Squamish and the Sechel Nation. And I would like to look at the agenda. We have an amended agenda before us, and I'm looking for a motion to, I'm looking to see if there's any other additions or subtractions from this amended agenda. Oh.
Point of order here, sorry. Could you, I'm online and maybe you've got a paper agenda in front of you, but I've only got an agenda from 6 days ago, posted 6 days ago, so I don't know what the amendment is.
There was a couple of reports that you probably received separately, and they've been added to the agenda, and that's the amendment. And so if you go to the shared folder, or if you have the two reports, the corporate work plan and the, what's the other piece? The staff report for decision. Those have been added to the agenda. Okay. And if you have those, that's the agenda I'm working off of as well.
I just downloaded an agenda that says 6 days ago, so I'll keep looking.
All right. We'll try and keep you up to date.
There's another one. Okay. 2 days ago. Okay, that's it. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. So we'll move on. Move to adopt. We have a seconder. All in favor? Very good. So that passes. So we have an agenda to work off of. Item 3 is presentations and delegations, and we have Nick Gaskin from the Executive Director of the Pender Harbour Health Centre. If you'd like to come forward. And if you have anyone else with you, can you identify yourselves?
Looks like it's just him.
Looks like it's just him.
In the meantime, motion to receive all the reports.
Very good. Thank you for that.
That's why I'm here, man.
My trusty co-chair.
Yeah.
Vice chair. Motion to receive all reports. I have a motion and a second, and all in favor? Very good. Thank you. You can go ahead when you're ready, Mr. Gaskin.
Good morning, Adequikwi, directors. Nick Gaskin, the Executive Director of the Pender Harbour Health Centre. I was meant to be joined today by John Rathbone, our Finance Administration Manager, but unfortunately he isn't able to join me. So at the request of the SERD, so you may remember back in the budget process, we put in an ask for some funding for our roof, and that was deferred at that process with a request to come in and give a presentation on our kind of 5-year capital plan for the health centre. So that's what I'm here for today. I'll skip past pictures of me because I'm right here. Agenda, I'm going to give you a bit of a quick background of the investments over the last kind of 15 years at the health centre in our infrastructure, in our building, an update on what we're currently working on right now, the 5-year plan coming up, and then a quick snapshot of each of those projects that we're hoping to complete over the next 5 years if we can secure funding for these. So as you can see, hopefully you had the chance to look at this presentation before I'm presenting you today, but over the last 15 years, we've made a lot of investments into the health centre. Lots of these investments come through donations and fundraised funds. We have managed to secure some grants, and also we have requested support through the SERD, through our capital budget for some of these upgrades and renovations. So we go to the next slide, you'll see that over the last kind of 15 years or so, we've spent about over $770,000 on upgrades to the health centre, renovations. We are 50 years old, so with a 50-year-old building comes the need to make needed changes. Of that, the SCRD has supported us with $112,000, of which we're extremely grateful, which leaves a $658,000 balance, which we've managed again to source through grants, donations, and fundraising. So, as you can see, some of the projects that the SCRD have supported with in the past include our generator, upgrading our sprinkler system to make us fire safe, some HVAC upgrades in our dentist suite, investments in our minibus storage to give that bus longevity of life, and helping us most recently with some flooring replacement in the health centre. We have recently, in the last 3 months, completed a $10,000 upgrade of our concrete out the front of the building. So we now have new concrete walkways and a new concrete ambulance bay. That was needed because of some cracks that were appearing and safety issues. And right now, we're really excited to announce that we're undertaking a $250,000 renovation of our primary care wing to create new treatment spaces, new virtual care rooms, offices, new accessible doorways to bring us up to accessibility standards, soundproofing for privacy, heat pumps for cooling and heat, new wood flooring to finish that flooring project, and I can answer questions about that a little bit later. New office equipment, medical equipment, and patient navigation. So you can see some photos there of the work currently underway. And we're funding this predominantly through grants and donations. About 80% of this project is being funded through donated funds to make this a reality for the community. Funding was sourced. We were a very generous family, donated a large lump sum towards our primary care wing renovation project. We got a grant from the Healthcare Auxiliary and then donations from our Health in a Harbour fundraiser, which ran for the last 3 years and brought in over $700,000 to the health centre. We're expecting the project to be completed in July, and we'll be opening it at an open house in August, and you'll get invites for that event coming up soon. As we mentioned, before we come to the SCRD, we're always trying to locate grants, lobby for other funding sources, and try and find other sustainable funding options before we come and ask the regional district for support. So this is the plan for the next kind of 5 years, and what we're looking at needing to upgrade and make investments in. So we recently found out that our septic line is old and corroded, and it's cost us quite a bit of money to fix a couple of blockages recently due to the corrosion, so that's going to need fixing or replacing. Obviously, the roof that you've already been briefed on in our previous application. Our furnaces, we have 3 of them, and 2 of them are going to need to be replaced. Ideally, we'd like to replace all 3 so we can move away from oil and move to natural gas for environmental and cost reasons. Tree clearing that needs to happen around the property to protect the roof and obviously our concrete car parks and sidewalks. And then security system upgrades, because our security system is very outdated. And then obviously repaving parking lots. So you'll see when we get through the presentation, there's some photographs of cracks, and we have a big parking lot that's currently unpaved that we would like to get paved. So very quickly, I'll just run through all those projects. So as you can see, there's photographs there of our current lines. They was taken about a month ago by Bonnybrook when they came and did the blockage, and you can see the corrosion and the high water levels in our water lines. It's obviously nearly 50 years old, and we've already spent $3,000 this year of our maintenance budget on getting those blocks and blockages, which is not sustainable for us to keep spending $1,500 a month on clearing out drains. So that's a big project for us. Obviously, the roof repair replacement. It's a metal roof. It's showing signs of wear and tear, including minor leaks. And it's moving towards the end of its lifespan. We did have a roofing company come out last year and quote us just under $80,000 to replace the roof. They did an inspection and said that it's getting towards the end of its life. We are trying to do regular maintenance on the roof. Our janitorial staff have been resealing all of our skylights to address leaks. We've also had some trees removed from over the property, some branches removed over the property to stop that overhanging that's been happening. These are our furnaces that we obviously would like to look to get replaced down the line. They're getting old towards the end of the lifespan. Obviously, as we know, oil's not the most environmental safe or cost-efficient way of heating buildings. It would obviously increase our energy efficiency and lower our operating costs if we could get better fuel. Tree clearing, as you can see, there are trees hanging over the property that need to get cleared back. There's a couple of trees, especially around our back property, that we'd like to maybe remove because they are causing quite substantial damage to the concrete. And so obviously clearing back the trees would obviously mitigate any risk and damage to the roof as well. And security system upgrades. So we currently have a very outdated security system in the building. We have limitations on what we can do with that security system. For example, we can only have a certain number of alarm codes. So that limits our ability to give access to our tenants outside of hours, because obviously our key staff need to have alarm codes. We don't have any CCTV, which with an investment that we're making right now in medical equipment and plans moving forward, we'd like to get those security standards upgraded. And then, as you can see there, the parking lots that obviously need to get repaved down the line, the cracks that are already appearing, and then the picture at the bottom you can see is our overflow parking lot, and that second property that we purchased recently, and that is a gravel parking lot. And obviously, for safety, we'd like to get that paved and maybe get some steps up to the health centre so folks aren't walking up a muddy bank to get to the clinic. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you and present to you our needs as a health centre. I remind you that we are a community-led non-profit health centre when we get no core funding from the government, provincial government. Ministry of Health don't give us any funding. In fact, they actually cut us $170,000 worth of funding this year. So we have no funding right now from the Ministry of Health, given we are a primary care health centre delivering healthcare to the community. So we obviously always rely on our partners, our funders and our donors to help keep us around and keep us operational, hopefully for another 50 years for community. Our partnering clinics have various other funding sources they can tap into, which we don't have access to as a community health centre. So I appreciate the opportunity to present, and obviously that $277,000 we need to find over the next 5 years to make these upgrades. We'll continue to look for government grants, other donations, fundraisers, and hopefully looking for some support from the SCRD to help keep our building operational. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaskin. Can you stop sharing your screen? And then I can look to the directors and see if they have any questions for you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, when you said the province has not come through with funding, is that Vancouver Coastal Health, or is that a different portion of the Ministry of Health?
Yeah, so we've been lobbying through the British Columbia Association of Community Health Centres for about 3 or 4 years now for core operational funding as a health centre from the Ministry of Health. They've yet to come to the table with that discussion. Historically, they've given us an emergency grant every year for the last 5 or 6 years, and we've ran our social work program, diabetes, CDM, adult day program through that emergency grant. But this year, due to fiscal pressures at the ministry, they've pulled all the funding for CHCs, and so we've lost some of those programs and had to cut back substantially. We do have a service agreement with Vancouver Coastal Health, which we've had for about 12, 13 years now, but we run an operational deficit of about $100,000 a year on that contract, and we've yet to get Vancouver Coastal Health to come to the table to discuss a renegotiation of that contract. So I'm lobbying them as well to sit down and renegotiate that contract, which is doesn't meet the needs of what we need. I think this year we ran a $111,000 operational deficit on that contract, which obviously isn't sustainable, and we end up funding that with our own money.
No, I find that interesting because Vancouver Island Health has gone heavily towards investing in health centers in small communities. And because we are attached to Vancouver Coastal Health, it's a different picture. And that's really unfortunate because communities need health centers, in my opinion. So, thanks.
Just to address that, I think we do provide a really vital service to Pender Harbour, and we take away a lot of demand on other VCH services, such as hospital and other clinics, and the value that we had. We did approach Vancouver Coastal Health for some money for our primary care wing upgrade, and unfortunately they came back and said there was no money for us. So we have gone to VCH in the past and asked for funding support, and unfortunately it's not been forthcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Gaskin. I have a quick question about how many patients go through this center every year and what's the staffing levels? Just for my information.
Yeah, so we have about 20 part-time and casual staff, ranging from nurses, social workers, counsellors, dietitians, operational staff, finance managers, clinic managers, mental health assistants. And we average around 20,000 unique visits a year, whether that's through our nursing clinics, through our doctors, through our transportation programs, through our Better at Home services. We provide a whole remit of programs and services to the community. One of the things we're really proud of is that we want to be a community health centre that focuses on the social determinants of health, and we don't necessarily want to just be a primary care clinic. We see value in community health and wellness and creating healthy communities. So our seniors programs, our transportation programs, our programs that we run for recreation and socialization, all those things are really important to us, and make a healthier community up in Pender Harbour. And so, we have lots of different programs, lots of different access points for community.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn to the representative for Pender Harbour, Mr. Lee.
Yes, I believe, if I've got it right, pretty much all the capital that goes into this facility has it all been privately raised? Has the government contributed anything to the capital aspect of our clinic?
So in recent years, we did get a grant from the province, an accessibility grant, which the SCRD supported, and that paid for us to have our 2 washrooms at the front renovated and made accessible, and obviously helped towards the flooring the SCRD contributed to. So we have access to provincial grant for accessibility in the last few years. We did put a big funding request in for over $1 million to the federal government about 4 years ago for another green accessibility grant, and we were given all the green lights and the right signals from the federal government that we would be successful. And so we actually outlaid money on specialists and consultants to help with that application, and then finally found out that after 4 years of waiting that our application was denied. So we don't have very much history of success with provincial or federal grants, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's a very, very interesting presentation. I guess we'll have to figure out the strategies for grants and fundraising and percentage that perhaps the SCRD could help with. It's quite a big chunk. And we got a fairly small base because this is paid for entirely through the Pender Harbour residents. So a little bit of money goes a long way to raising the taxes. But I know our residents are strong supporters of the clinic, so we need to work on it. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gaskin. So we're going to move on to the next portion, which is a staff report pertaining to the Pender Harbour Health Centre capital project request. And I was wondering if there's anyone to introduce this.
Just for information.
Okay, well, it's there on the agenda for information. It does outline the decisions that we've made, and we will circle back to that. I'm going to move on to our next report, which is the Seychelles Hospital Wellfield Next Steps, section 4.1 in our agenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaskin. And I've got Manager Waldorf and General Manager Rosenboom, who are taking the presentation table and getting ready to introduce this request for decision.
Thank you, Chair.
GM Rosenboom, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Staff would like to take the opportunity to introduce his report with a couple of slides. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So the purpose of this report is to provide the board with options to advance the feasibility study of the CCL Hospital well field. And before I go into what next steps could include and what they might result in, I thought I'll provide the board with a little bit more insight in groundwater and the testing of groundwater, etc. As indicated before to the board, groundwater is actually a big mass of water that's slowly, in our case, slowly moving from the mountains through the ground to the ocean. And it's influenced by precipitation, evaporation, infiltration into other aquifer layers, into other groundwater layers, as well as any extractions from it. Usually during the summer months, towards the end of the summer months, late summer, early fall, groundwater flows slow down a little bit because of lack of infiltration and precipitation. In the winter, usually they're a little bit higher. What is happening when you actually drill a well and start pumping that well in the aquifer? You're creating kind of a cone. You're drawing the water down, and the depth of the cone is dependent on two things: the rate of pumping, as well as the amount of water that's actually flowing in this diagram from left to right on your screen. If there's a lot of water, if there's a huge flow, then the cone is usually way less deep than if there's not a lot of flow happening. So the measure, the depth of the cone also has an impact on the area that is actually impacted by that well. If you have a small depth of cone, then usually the area of influence is also relatively small. And the time required for the cone to disappear when you stop drilling is actually a measure for the flow rate of the aquifer. If there's a lot of water coming in when you stop drilling and it bounces back very quickly, then you know that there is a lot of water, a lot of pressure in the aquifer. So to date, the actions taken are: we drilled a test well of 150 mil, which is a 6-inch, whatever size you want to refer to, and it has a maximum capacity of 22.4 liters a second. We cannot just get more water out of that well given the size. So based on the assessments we completed to date, we confirmed the potential productivity, impacts to the aquifer and the area of influence, and we did water quality testing, and the findings to date are it's high groundwater flow, small area of influence, and good water quality. Next steps that we are in the process of undertaking: we applied for a water license for this 74 liters a second, which is the limit such that we don't need a full environmental assessment certificate to be obtained. We're in the process of applying a rights and title application to the Seychelles Nation, and we're working with Vancouver Coastal Health on the land use agreement for a well field development. And we will be starting the continuous groundwater monitoring on the site. So what could be next steps? Drilling of 2 larger wells. As I just indicated, the well capacity currently is limited to 22.4. So for us to confirm what the actual area of influence impacts to other to the surrounding would be after drilling of this well, we would need to drill bigger wells, and we would need to redo all the testing that we already completed to confirm what is the actual impact of the surrounding area. How you usually do that is we're using existing wells that are in the area. Currently, we've used some of Heidelberg's wells, and there are other wells that we could use. And there are level sensors put in those wells so you can see if there's a drop in water level or not based on how long you're pumping. There will be, it's proposed to do an assessment of contamination risk from surface spills and other events that could result in contamination of the aquifer at the site. We're proposing to do further archaeological work in support of the development of those, the drilling of those 2 new wells. Preliminary design and costing estimate also for the connection to the water system. And of course, ongoing engagement with Vancouver Coastal Seychelles Nation and Ministry of Waterlands and Natural Resource Stewardship. What is not proposed at this point in time, but what could be a future step, is actually a decision by the board to proceed with the development of the well. That's currently out of scope, but that might be one of the next steps that could be considered based on the results of the previous outlined steps. That would then include final design, funding confirmation for the construction, and actually the construction itself. The well, as we're currently, based on the current test results and modeling that has been undertaken by our consultant, we predict that the well actually has a way larger capacity than 74 liters a second that we applied for a water license for. So a phase 2 that could be initiated at any point in the future is to drill more wells, test those wells, and see if what the area of influence would be for an even larger well field at the site, and then decide if that's desired to be further advanced. That would then include also full environmental assessment certificate process by the province, new water license, and of course additional engineering. And happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, GM. That was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the slide that you had that showed the area of influence. How when you draw water down, you're creating a cone, and the deeper the cone, the more influence it'll have further out. I look forward to seeing more on this well, but at the moment, I'm going to go to my vice chair, Mr. Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I had in my head prior to right now that I was sort of happy to move forward with 1, 2, and 3, but I wanted to sort of hit pause on recommendation 4 until we did a little more testing. We had some more communications and some more feedback from the nation, and we just learned more about this as a whole. But what I thought I saw on one of those slides was that because of the limitations of the wells, you can't really fully test with the wells that are there now. You do need to drill larger diameter wells in order to do proper flow testing. I'm seeing the nods. I just wanted to hear that confirmed.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, sorry, Chair, for jumping in. No, that is indeed correct. There's no way we can confirm the area of impact, area of influence of 74 liters a second without having the 2 larger wells drilled. So the current budget estimate that we currently have is that we're thinking that we might need 1.1, 1.2 in total. The current recommendation is to redirect $850,000 from the Great Creek project that has been abandoned or to this work. And so the budget proposal would be to close the gap so that we can actually drill the wells early next year. But this budget that we're currently requesting for is at least allows us to initiate the work so that we can actually move ahead and do the monitoring. Because even though we cannot do a full test well program, the 72-hour pump test with the current wells, we can confirm how the aquifer behaves over the winter months based on the current well, just by dropping a water level sensor in and also in other wells. And that's something that we would like to initiate sooner or later, because the more data we have, the better we, if we have a year of data it will provide us with a lot of insight in the behavior of the well and the aquifer.
Thank you for that answer. I've got a short speakers list here. I'm going to go to Director Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. Whenever I am talking about the hospital well field, the question comes up about the relationship to Dusty Road well. And is there consideration of how the two compare, or if there is a point where the two will be compared? Because as the public becomes more of an expert on water and aquifers, it was quite clear right at the beginning this was an unconfined aquifer. So how is it different from Dusty Well? And are you ready to speak to that yet, or is that something that's still to be determined?
Thank you for the question. Dusty Road well is located in the same aquifer as we currently see it. However, an aquifer is not one uniform body of water. For example, as was presented to the Town of Gibson's Council on Tuesday, Aquifer 560 has several lobs. Yes, they have one recharge area, but it consists of several areas that are, in that case, even not connected to each other. I think the aquifer that we're currently dealing with is similar. There's no connection between the water that's flowing towards Dusty and the water that's flowing towards this well. And it could even be, and that's something that we are very interested in exploring, is that there might not even be a connection between, because there might be even a rock formation between the current well and the well field that we're proposing and some of the Heidelberg wells. There might even be a rock formation there in between. So that water, that might really impact the area of influence because it's almost cut off on one side because there's a rock formation. So it's a one-sided cone almost. And that's something that our consultant is really interested in exploring by testing the larger wells to see if there's, because at some point there would need to be some impacts to it as well because they're not that far away. If that's completely not happening, then most likely there is a barrier there. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. And I'd like to point out that my understanding is that the Dusty Road well is in an area that could be that there's still rights of the gravel pit to mine absolutely right around the well, and it is much closer to our landfill. And I was wondering if any kind of ground penetrating radar could give you answers about this, about the topography between Heidelberg and the Seashell Hospital well.
Thank you for the question. I'm referring to Manager Waldorf for the question on the ground of any further assessments to be completed, but I want to follow up on the relation between the mine and Dusty Road well. The area of influence of Dusty Road well includes the area next door where the mine is. So it's confirmed that there is the area of influence overlaps with the neighboring mine site. So including on the wells that they have there. So there, in that case, there is a connection established, which has not been the case yet for this well field.
Thank you. Manager Waldorf, you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just add with regards to like the nature of the ground formations and stuff, studies or research on that with ground penetrating radar to identify like the lithography or the layers that we see is something that might happen towards the end, so we can have a better understanding of any connectivity that we do identify. But the first steps would be to drill the larger wells and see what the impacts are. The initial study showed no impact on the mines wells at Heidelberg. So we're expecting to see a similar result from the larger wells when they're tested. But if we do see implications, we would begin to look at further research in that regard.
All right, thank you for the answer. I'm going to go to Director Lee for more questions.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are if we could get a copy of that presentation for future reference.
Director Inkster, you have a question?
I'd love a copy of that too, Chair, so obviously that's happening. I'm assuming, based on the request. I'm not too concerned. Obviously, we need to take a technological view of the aquifers that are in those areas to determine whether there's similarities between the two. But I just think, gravity, I think that they're different, just based on the sloping and gravity. But that's my non-scientific, expensive non-ground penetrating radar view of that situation. But maybe it will be confirmed for those that think that one's the same as the other, because I have concerns about one that we've talked about a number of times. I like this approach. My question through you is, I don't know if everyone's aware, and if they're not, they should go look. And I think that Director Gabius is more aware. I think because she's been there in that site, and maybe Director Paul there's a huge garden complex there behind the hospital near that well, and the dream of some is to expand the gardens there in a huge way so that we have a lot of local food. And ironically and happily enough, we've discovered there's water there. So my question always is in these circumstances is, if we do, and it looks like we're proceeding to create more redundancies, i.e. more wells, good to see one in the Seashell area, finally with some high water production, that we have a plan that could utilize some of the water if at a pure healthy level to water and or service some of that garden that the dream is to expand. So I think we really should need a holistic sort of vertical integration view of this based on the gardens that are there. And I think that should be part of our plan, much like any of our wells around Kinnickinnick should be watering Kinnickinnick fields if there's water up there. So I'm supportive of this idea, and that's one reason why I am, is because we can grow food for our community there as well as discover water for the rest of the community. Thanks.
Thank you for your holistic view, Director Inkster. And food security is always should be in the back of our minds. I'm going to look to Director White. You have some questions.
Yeah, I'm just following up on Director Inkster's comments. I'm a little confused because when I've spoken to people who are working on that garden/farm, I thought they were already getting groundwater. So, it's not going to change, I wouldn't imagine.
Well, I'm going to ask staff or Director Inkster if there is a groundwater well that waters this garden area.
Maybe, sorry, I didn't intend that. Maybe we should ask staff as the authority.
Thank you, Chair. To my knowledge, the current gardens are being watered by a well drilled on the Heidelberg lands.
Thank you for the answer. Director Toth, have you spoken to this yet?
I have.
I will go to Director Gabias then.
Thank you, Chair. Not too picky about the order. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to staff for the presentation. It was mentioned that the monitoring would look at private wells and wells in the area to see what the area of influence is. I'm wondering if there's other sites that are going to be looked at, and I'm thinking specifically because it's in the Swia and on close to in the midst of Shishal lands, if we're working with the Shishal in order to identify spots that should be monitored. Thank you.
Go ahead, GM.
Thank you for the question. That will be part of the conversation following the rights and title application with the nation. And we're definitely open to investigate any other locations that might be requested to be looked at.
All right, thanks for the answer. Yeah, I look forward to working with our neighbors at the Seychelles Nation to move this forward, I hope. I'm going to go to my vice chair, Mr. Toth.
Thank you. So I'm still sort of looking at recommendation 4, and I'm just trying to unpack the budget proposal, the, drilling and testing of wells that'd be, I guess, considered as part of that budget proposal. So what I'm really looking for is some comments from staff on, any risks associated with maybe just deferring recommendation 4 or consideration of recommendation 4 to Q3. Because it's looking at 2026 budget, I don't think it's going to necessarily impact any of this year's activity. And so just to leave space for conversations, to leave space for other priorities, I'm wondering about the impacts of deferring recommendation 4 to Q3. Thanks.
Thank you. That's an interesting question. Jim Rosenboom, do you need recommendation number 4 this year?
Thank you. Recommendation number 4 would not commit the board to anything. It's more that we would bring back a budget proposal which would allow us to at least have the certainty that the full budget would be considered by the board, but it would not have an immediate impact on what we would be doing right now anyway. The budget proposal would first need to be approved by the board as part of the budget process, and only then the SRD can actually commit to the drilling of the full-size production wells early following the budget proposal. So it's not a requirement. We can bring the budget proposal forward. That decision can be made at any point in time, or we can just bring it forward and the board can consider it as part of the budget process.
Thank you. That was ambiguous enough. I'm going to go to Director Lee. You had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Actually, it was just it was a clarifying question. I did have a tour of the farm behind the hospital. It's quite a neat operation. They were using potable water as part of the end process. So, and I believe they will continue to need to do that. They can use the well to grow the darn thing, but when it's time to go to market, they need to clean it off with the potable, drinkable water.
Thank you for that insight. That's great. I'm going to go to Director Toth. You have something to say about page 21?
Thank you, Chair. It may be page 22, but I get your hint. I'm okay. I thank you to staff for this report. Thank you for the clarification about recommendation 4. I personally am still kind of on the fence about moving forward with recommendation 4 at this time, but I am willing to move recommendations 1, 2, and 3 right now, just to get them on the floor.
We have a second for that. Any questions? Oh, Director Inkster, you have a question? Oh, any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? I see none, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Very good. We have a 4th recommendation, and we're just going to bypass that.
Or see if somebody wants to move it. Because I'm not moving it doesn't mean somebody else
Director, sorry, Stafford. So many names.
Let's just see where we go. I'd like to move recommendation 4 as presented.
And I have a seconder for that. And so now, is there any discussion on recommendation number 4? I don't, oh, there we go. We've got Donna. Sorry, Director McMahon, would you like to go? Would you like to talk about this motion?
I am not clear what the benefits would be to deferring this. yeah, I guess the question would be, when would staff be preparing a budget proposal anyway? Like, would this somehow impact the work plan of the staff?
Furiously writing over there, Manager Waldorf. GM Rosenboom.
Thank you. Staff are preparing budget proposals or start working on this summer. So if we get this direction from the board, we will include this for sure. And otherwise, it might need to be a last moment thing in after the summer, in September or October, to do it at that time.
Thank you. And I, for one, understand that you're trying to prepare. You're already working on our next budget, so I think it's a good proposal to bring forward. But I have Director Toth might have a counterpoint.
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't necessarily have a counterpoint. Like I said, I was sort of struggling with recommendation 4. I recognize that it doesn't commit us to anything. I'm just cautious of the fact that it does signal a significant step forward in the project. And I'm not sure that we're ready to make that commitment yet with everything else we have going on and with all of our other priorities and projects in the hopper. You know, we're supposed to be starting Langdale Well here imminently, construction. We're, working on reservoirs with the nation. Like, we've got a ton of stuff in the hopper, and I don't want to signal that this is going to be something that's going to be, done and dusted next year. It is going to be a long process, and there's a lot of gating that happens along the way. And I just want everybody that's listening and paying attention to this to realize that. And so, like I said, I struggle with it, but thank you.
Yes, I think that the long process is going to be more excuse me, is going to be more waiting for approvals and things like that. But to me, it looks like this well itself is a fairly straightforward and robust piece of infrastructure that can be created easily if it wasn't for red tape. But I'm going to go to Director Inkster. Oh, thank you.
So I'm okay with this fourth recommendation. It's only a proposal that then comes to us and we debate like other things and discuss. My only question through you to staff would be, previously in the agenda we had Great Creek as a proposal that we've discussed a number of weeks ago that was dropped. And so that created some money that went back to an account that we could then utilize for this, which is great. I'm getting, as a ratepayer and taxpayer, taxed and rate fatigue. So I'm glad we have some internal monies. But I would ask on the staff side, if in fact not doing that project for the moment, because we may need in future to look at all our water resources that are available locally, as long as they meet the EFN needs, as an example, if that relieved and or created some staff hours available for this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Inkster. I'd just like to clarify my last statement. I understand that there are things that need to be put into place before we can take steps forward. I just speak from the frustration of some of my constituents as to how long things take in government, but I do have a deeper understanding now that I've been here for a while. This project is not necessarily a priority for the board, but it is on our list. Go ahead, GM Rosenboom, you have something to say?
Thank you. In response to the question from Director Inkster, through the chair. The budget, the recommendations as listed indicate that there is 0.22 FTE that was originally approved, and an additional capacity for Great Creek to be reallocated. However, there was also some existing staff capacity allocated to Great Creek that's also be freed up to work on this project.
From
from
Greg,
Greg.
yes.
So there will be net no impact to the workload of the department.
Yeah, we can pivot from Great Creek into this well fairly simply, right? Thank you. Director White, you have something to ask.
Okay. Well, I have something to say. I'm not, maybe to ask yet, but I'm an observer on this. I don't get to vote, but I get to speak. So I just want to qualify that. I know that. I just, you know, my question in observing this is, I mean, if the board as committee were to turn down this proposal now, would staff take that as an automatic deferral to 2027? Which I think, you know, we should all probably consider when we're talking about, you know, a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of considerations to be made, a lot of red tape. We'd in essence be setting up one of our own by putting this off all the way to 2027 and not being prepared to even consider it in 2026. And with that, I mean, I think everyone here knows there are a lot of these hoops and possible approvals and things that could not work out in the meantime, and maybe it just won't be viable in 2026. But I think staff is making a very sound and rational recommendation here that we should be doing the work to have this as an option in 2026. And so I will ask that to staff, though. I will ask a question there is, I mean, if this were to be turned down, like, that's basically, at this point, just because of some reluctance, an automatic deferral to this isn't going to be in the 26 budget, which then kind of sets up an obstacle or so-called red tape that we're putting on this by not being ready.
GM, Director White has some salient points here.
Thank you. It's not a common process to request board direction to bring forward a budget proposal. Usually it's based on operational needs and opportunities and desires. In this case, we did so because we want to explicitly have the board direction that they want to consider that in 2026. So not moving forward with this resolution now or immediately after the summer would indeed result that we won't bring it forward as part of the 2026 budget process.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. Director Stanford, you have a question?
Not a question. I would just like a comment
discussion.
as I move this motion. I do see this as part and parcel of moving forward with our overall water strategy. We have an opportunity, given our decision not to move forward with Grey Creek. So I'm speaking in favor of this motion, that it's just a part of a process. We've got many, many, many steps that we can adjust accordingly, but this provides a reasonable direction to staff that we think this is an important project to move forward with. And I think it also signals to the public that we are looking at all our options for our water strategy. And it's a win for everybody. So I'm going to be voting in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gabias, you've removed your hand. That's okay.
Yeah, no. Maybe I will say something. Thanks,
All right,
Chair.
you go ahead.
And speaking to the motion on the floor, I think I understand Director Toth's reservations about kind of maybe being like really, I wouldn't say aggressive, but like going for it full speed, and maybe like kind of taking a bit of a breather. But I think that time, I feel like it would either have to happen now or. Like I feel like waiting does not really, I think except for sending maybe a little signal, I don't think it's necessary at this point. So I'll be voting in favor. Thanks.
I'm going to go to Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking for clarification because it sounds like some people believe that this means that it's jumping the gun, and that's what it can appear at the first time. It says that, because that's a little bit of a problem with I had a presentation. It doesn't mention any negatives. That aquifer could be below sea level. That wasn't presented as an option, that once we start drawing really high, it may start drawing in saltwater. It may start drawing somewhere off really fast. It may be one of the aquifers that don't recharge very quickly. You get a surface charge. Anybody knows electrical? You can just surface charge a battery, draw it down, and it gives you a false reading on the capability of that battery. So I just wanted to make clarification, and putting this into a budget proposal, I think maybe clarification, like what is this going to take for staff time? Is this going to be 20 hours by one person, 100 hours by 4 people each? So just maybe clarification. And the next testing is still, I'm assuming, 6 months to a year to get those tests done. Get a driller in here, drill the wells, start setting it to everything up, coordinate with everybody. And so maybe some clarification on that. The second part is, do we include stuff like BC Hydro? Like, because my impression was when it was brought to the nation that this was going to be emergency water for the hospital, not production service for the entire coast. So that's what we communicated when we had meetings with our partners at BCH and stuff like, oh yeah, we're looking at this, we're trying to do this as an emergency backup for the hospital. Because it could impact, if we start drawing down, part of that testing shows you that, do you have subsidence in different area? A lot of the material around the hydro right away is very sandy. There's about 2 or 3 feet that's very sandy. That's why the regenerative farm came in to try to offset that. They found that there's very deep sandy material. So that would subside very easily. We have the community soccer fields right there too and stuff, right? Do we start getting sinkholes along different roads? We don't know. We don't know enough. That's what the testing provides us for. So it could recommendation 4 could appear to be jumping ahead. We need to plan and budget as if this well is going forward. So I think that just the clarification on those kind of points might make the decision a bit easier. I don't personally have too much of a problem that whatever, but just the clarification for that. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Director Inkster. Sorry. Staff, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. In terms of purpose of the well, yes, it will be a production well connected to the Chapman system. However, it would also, in our conversation with VCH is really interested in as well, because it would provide them with more than enough water to provide the entire hospital as emergency situation. Even if the entire system would go down, entire system, Chapman system, there would be many major flaws there. We can isolate it such that the hospital at least would have an infinite amount of water for their operation. So that is definitely a reason that VCH is very eager to advance this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Inkster.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think staff's answering similarly the same question. Let's move forward. And in terms of the, just a couple of statements earlier, because I'm still really supportive of these projects and putting them on our budget lines. And in speaking of the full speed ahead thing, I'm going to be really clear. My cards are on the table. I'm full speed ahead on water. And that's why I'm supporting the Shell on their reservoirs, wherever they may be. I'm pushing the wells if we can get them done. And I'm supportive of any other water projects, including the metering to save water. I'm full speed ahead on water to get water for our communities for many different reasons, including firefighting in the summer if we need it. Until staff says I give, I'm full speed on water. Thanks.
Thank you. And there is a few other items on this agenda to deal with water. I'm going to go to Director White, and you have something to say about this.
Okay. I just got to think about how that's set up. So I want to go back to Director Paul's concerns there. And I thought he was asking kind of a question. So maybe I just want to reframe that or reiterate that. All the concerns that, I mean, from the town of Gibson's experience in drawing water from an aquifer with wells, we do test wells, we do a lot of monitoring, and all of those variables that Director Paul brought up would need to be kind of checked off, and before any drawing, probably a water license is going to be approved by the province, no doubt, let alone our own standards. All that stuff needs to be, there needs to be some certainty on the viability and sustainability of the well before we can go ahead. So, I mean, I think his points are totally valid and important. And so just want to confirm from staff that all those answers we need to get security on all those questions before any such project would go ahead.
Thank you. GM Rosenboom.
Thank you for your question. Yes, Director White is correct. The province will not issue a water license. That's just not allowed. They're not allowed to by law. That to a well that could result in saltwater intrusion, and they would consider climate change impact to sea level rise in that kind of assessment. So there are a lot of safeguards in place for that, also in terms of potential impact to land or subsidence or whatever. That's all needs to be checked off in our conversations with the province before they even would consider a license.
Yeah, thank you. I see that there is a lot of care taken with creating a new well like this, and there's a lot of agencies that are involved in making sure that we get it right. And I know that the regional district has been delivering water for a good number of years, and they're very good at it. And seeing no other hands up, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Very good. Thank you. That passes, and we are going to.
5-minute break?
Okay, I've heard a call for a 5-minute break, and we're going to do that. See you in 5 minutes. My mic was off. Welcome back to the Committee of the Whole. And we're going to dive back into the agenda at item 4.2, Universal Water Metering Phase 3 Budget Amendment Request. We have the pertinent staff in front of us, and I will ask for an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Phase 3 of the SCRD's Universal Water Metering Program will have installed over 4,200 meters on services throughout the regional district water system. Metered connections are a vital step in support of leak detection and also metered billing, volumetric billing. Back in 2020, Board approved a budget of $7.25 million for the metering project. And in 2021, through the AAP, through the successful AAP, we managed to get, $7.25 million was approved via the AAP. We successfully applied for a grant in 2021 for $6 million that facilitated the increase of this budget to 9.39 at that time. Field installations for this project began in October of 2023, and at this point, we are roughly 84% complete. The remaining work, though, involves substantially deeper installations at connections, larger meter installations for multifamily developments. Hard to locate meters and non-standard service sizes have also added complexity to the project. Along with higher archaeological costs for dealing with archaeological finds and assessments while we're in progress. And so the result of that is that staff are asking or are foreseeing a sum total cost of the project of potentially $12 million, which we are asking for a budget increase for today. Staff have examined options such as retendering the work or performing it in-house, relocation of some of these deeper meters inside, but each of these alternatives results in a delay in completion of the project and increased risks or liability on part of the SCRD. It would also divert resources away from already existing SCRD priorities. Amending the contract with the current contractor to include this work, as recommended in the staff report, is the most direct and lowest risk way to ensure the completion of the project in a timely manner and keep us on schedule for completion in 2025. All of that in support of getting the volumetric billing program in line and on schedule as well.
Thank you, Manager Waldorf. I am looking to the directors to see if they have anything to say about this report. Thank you, Mr. Toth. You can go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Bax. Looking at page 29 of the report, or the agenda, sorry, page 3 of the staff report, the second bullet point mentions, the option of installing meters inside instead of outside of the service connection. I'm interested about, how these inside installations could be very costly when we're considering the alternatives of, extremely deep excavations. I think I'd heard somewhere along the way, something like 18 feet deep. I would think that installing a meter inside would be cheaper than excavating to 18 feet, but I'd like some clarity, thanks.
Yep, certainly.
Go ahead.
Well, not all of the deep excavations are 18 feet deep. There are a fair number of them that reach that depth. Staff are considering both the cost of the installation weighed against the potential liability of operating SCRD equipment inside somebody's home, as well as the vast majority of leaks, both in number and in volume that we've discovered have been between the meter and the setter in the street and the person's home. So inside installations would fail to identify those leaks individually. Where we are considering interior installs is primarily in areas that were purpose-built for such things, multifamily developments that have a water meter or a water service in an existing mechanical room with drains. The idea of sending SCRD plumbers or staff or contractors into somebody's home to effectively put something like this in their laundry room or where their service might come in is viewed as a bit of a risk, on top of the fact that it doesn't support the leak resolution that we've managed to do so far.
Thank you. I have a question along these lines. Is there any metering along our main transmission lines that would allow for us to detect a leak within that group of hookups?
Thank you, Chair. Currently, the SRD doesn't have what's called zone meters. So we can identify usually leaks by rate of filling of or depletion of reservoirs. If something is draining really rapidly, then we know that something is going away somewhere. Zone meters are definitely something that the SRD, the staff are looking at to advance in future years once we have some of the more urgent things under control. But because we know that zone metering can be an efficient tool to identify leaks or areas of concern, and it can improve our operations as well. But because of the size of the water mains that they would need to be installed in, usually it's 12-inch or even bigger, they are extremely expensive. So we're talking about easily about $100,000 or more, sometimes even per meter. So yes, it's something that we are looking into, but not considering before we have some more urgent issues addressed.
Thank you. I'm going to look to Director McMahon. She has a question.
Yeah, I had some curiosity questions. I'm not altogether surprised that we have found quirky hookups from historical areas, but I was wondering, like, who ever thought it was a good idea to bury a water pipe 18 feet deep? Could I assume that current standards would not permit water pipes to be installed that way, number one? But number two, are you learning things that are going to be helpful when it comes to replacing our aging water mains? Because I know one neighborhood in particular, I've already been warned that the pipes were buried super, super deep. So is this an education that is going to benefit us in future?
I can see staff wants to answer that question.
Yep. So we do have some standard details now, and typically it would be the responsibility of the private property owner to provide adequate access to anything that they do bury by relocating soil. But most of these depths are encountered due to the main being installed, inspected, and integrated into our infrastructure, with the landscaping or the depth being altered after the fact via road construction, which is outside the SCRD's purview in most of these areas.
Thank you. People are building berms on top of their, okay. Director Lee, you go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Kind of interesting in moving the meter away from the road right away, because I'm dead against it, because we get so much breakage between our main and the residents. So, and the other thing is, we would have to have a right-of-way, because some people might landscape and don't give a damn if there's a leak and won't let us on there. So that's all stuff we don't need, in my opinion. So I'm not at all in favor of moving the meters away from the property lines. With that in mind, I'm curious about the logic for putting meters in strata and large service areas. If I get a little information on that.
Okay, thank you, through the chair. Stratas are we provide water to a strata. We consider strata to be one unit. How the strata subsequently handles who's using what water and what water is used in common spaces, etc., is the responsibility of the strata. And usually stratas are connected also with one main, most commonly, one main to the system. So we have the water at the curb, just like a residential property. We have the water meter at the curb, and the strata is responsible for if they average the water use among the residents. If they want to split it up, that's up for the strata to it's almost aligned with the strata philosophy of what a strata actually is.
Thank you for the answer. I'm going to go to Director Inkster.
Thank you. In answer to the earlier question, maybe the Seychelles were working with the Romans on water lines 2,000 years ago, and that's why they're so deep. The question that I wanted to ask, and by the way, just as a process question, if I could ask the chair if he has a question, if he could just put it at the end of the questions, and just to be the next person in line, as we always do, that would be helpful. The leak detection, just a question on the leak detection. How many leaks have we discovered? And then from what I heard, it's less than 20% of new installs. So I'm really surprised about this increase that we have to sort of swallow. But as I said earlier, we just need to get these things done, and that will be probably part of our communications, although I'm sure communications will probably say things different than we need to get things done. That's just me talking, but from the political end. But I wanted to say, how many leaks have we had, just as a reminder, because then I would say potentially we'd discover 1/4 more of those with the new hookups and solve that problem. Thanks. Through you, Chair, to staff.
GM Rosenbaum.
Thank you. Since the installation of the water meter started, we identified 9 leaks with significant large volumes. Then I'm talking about 50, 60,000 liters a day. Those have been addressed. As indicated on the previous committee of the whole meeting, since January we had 2 leaks that in itself already accounted for almost 500,000 liters a day. So large leaks, but there are lots of leaks that are out there that we know that they're out there, but we haven't pursued their resolution yet because we want to first get all the meters installed, do a full meter read, and then we can also tackle all the smaller reads. So the only ones that we now have been able to resolve is when the meter is installed and the water meter is immediately starts spinning. Then we know there is something out there. So when there is a visual evidence that there is water leaking, we've been able to go after them, but we haven't done any water meter reads yet. So we don't know exactly yet how much water is currently leaking within the Seychelles area or how many properties there are. But based on the data we have so far, we expect there will be a substantial amount. So, and there will be saving as a result of that, of course, in terms of operating costs, because we don't have to treat all that water moving forward. So yes, there will be an operational savings there. And staff, as indicated in the report, there are several reasons for that we are here today with the budget request we have. And staff have explored all opportunities we have to reduce the cost further. But this is what it is, and it's a lot. We don't have a clear understanding of, when we started the project, what the sizes of all the meters are, we anticipated sizes, connections to be, let's say, 1 inch. It turned out to be a 2 inch, which is triple the size of cost of a 1 inch. So these kind of situations, things were installed in the past without SRD oversight as we would do it now, and that's really the situation we're in right now.
Thank you for the answer. Director McMahon.
Thank you. As reluctant as I always am to spend more money, I see no options, so I would like to move the recommendations on page 27.
And I see a second for that. Director Gabias, would you like to discuss?
Yeah, thank you so much. And again, yeah, I think we're kind of gonna have to bite it. And I mean, that's not the first project. I mean, think of Church Road Well. That also there were some costs. Where am I echoing? And I'm just thinking of communications because this is quite a significant sum that's coming to us that we need to we need to bite. We hear in the community people, okay, like meters won't provide more water, which is true in a way. It doesn't add to the supply, but it stops the waste of the supply. So I'd be interested in knowing how much water has been saved and compare that to a well or because we have the cost of the project and then how much, and this is going to be ongoing, right? Every year leaks are, as they pop up, we're going to be able to catch the leaks, fix the leaks. So to kind of put a value to this project, I'd be interested to see how it compares to the other ones, just so people can see that, no, it's not a reservoir, it's not another well, but it keeps the water going where it should be going and stops the waste, and it's very valuable that way.
Thank you, Director Gabias. And if I may, I would wonder if staff could put it in a way that how many average households of water have we saved through this metering project? Or whatever way staff feels that they can try to express this savings of water that we've created through this project.
Thank you to the question. There's all kind of numbers flowing through my head, but I'm not going to put them out right now. I would like to, if the board would like to, I'm happy to provide a report back to the board with that information. I think that's the best way so that we can actually do it in a comprehensive way, and actually I'm confident in the data I'm presenting to the board. Thank you.
I think that it might be a great communication tool to justify this project. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you for your time. Yes? Director Toth?
Thank you, Chair. I heard GM Rosenboom say that if that was information we wanted, that a staff report coming forward would be quite beneficial in terms of the savings of the water meters. So I'm going to take a stab at a motion here. That staff bring forward a brief report covering water saved through universal water metering installs and monitoring. Leave it open-ended. I think they've heard us.
Okay, question.
CAO Perot, you have something to say about this?
Just curious if it's just for the regional system or is it for the all three water systems?
I would say just the regional, the Chapman system is sufficient. The North and South Pender systems are completed now, so.
Well, Chair, if I may.
Reach for the top.
The point is to identify the savings that meters have brought us. And I think, there are meters in Pender Harbor. I will leave it to the director from that area to speak to whether he would also like to add North and South Pender to this report. I would see the value in us looking at it comprehensively. Thank you.
This has created a little bit of a speaker's list. I will go to Director McMahon.
Okay, I'm not going to go on at length, but I just thought that when the metering project for Seashell wraps up might be the most appropriate time to report those metrics. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I'm going to go to Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. My comments are a little simpler in that I see the meters have two benefits. One is the leakage, and the other is when we go to the billing. And together, those are expected to have a savings. And at that point, we probably could figure out the dollar per liter that we've saved. But to do it before we're that far along, I'm not sure it's feasible to do it as a snapshot in time.
Thank you. Director Inkster, you have a question?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me? Ours are red in Seashell. It's very confusing, which says stop, but that's doubly confusing. So my question is, we had some questions about what this means in water savings. And we always want to do that analysis, not only in water savings, but cost savings. And staff jumped quickly to say, I can do a report for that. I thought they were busy. And we're about to request that they do that because they volunteered that they could do that. I hope they can do that. And that we're not stacking something more on top of the work that we need them to do, which is find and produce and treat more water. Yeah, I heard brief. I hope it can be. I hear that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Director Inkster. I think, yeah, the operative word was brief, and it would, I think a report like this could be created for the North and South Pender systems earlier than the Chapman system, right? I look to General Manager Rosenboom.
Thank you. Staff is able to provide by the end of the year a report based on North-South Pender as well as Chapman, based on the information we have. There might be some gaps, there might be some follow-up questions in terms of financial analysis coming out of that, but we can provide you with a brief overview of the current state of affairs by the end of the year. Thank you. Without having a significant impact on the overall workload.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it would be something that you'd be proud to bring forward because of the work that you're doing. I'm going to look to Director Gabias.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, like when I think I was thinking more of communications related to this report, like when because we have to add some significant money to this project, and in order to communicate that to the community how important that project is, I was more looking for something, not necessarily a report, but how to communicate it to the public. But happy if staff can provide a report as well later on. That's great too.
Thank you. I will look to Director Lee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a little clarification. If we were looking for a report that says the meters have saved us this much water, and typically this meter of water costs this, so far we've saved this, and there's future savings coming with the billing part. That seems like a fairly simplified and generalized report that would help the public, and I definitely would support something like that. So a little bit of adding to my earlier comments. So as long as it don't take a lot of time, because Jesus, we're short of staff time.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
I'm just going to point out that conservation has already saved us a bunch of money. Not long after our treatment plant was built, there were reports saying that we were going to have to expand it because of the amount of water that was being demanded. And we have reduced the average household demand so that we have not had to expand our water treatment plant. And when you start getting into those kind of infrastructure projects, that's big money. So I think we have already, to some measure, succeeded. And the more ways we can demonstrate it, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try and get us back on track here.
I moved it, but you never asked for a seconder.
I'm going to ask for a seconder on the motion. Can you read your motion back to us?
That staff bring forward a brief report summarizing water saved through water metering, universal water metering installs and monitoring.
And I'm looking for a seconder for that. We have a seconder. Okay. Any discussion on this? No further discussion on this. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Very good. And any opposed? No? Okay, so that passes. Thank you. And our recommendations on page 27, have we taken care of those? Okay, good. Thank you, staff. Moving right along, we are going to, where are we? Corporate work plan?
No.
No?
Volumetric billing update 4.3.
Oh, okay, 4.3, volumetric billing update, which is Manager Doyle. Thank you for joining us. This is a highly technical report, and it has a lot of charts and graphs in it that are meant to be part of the bylaw. And so I'm going to ask the directors if they can try to keep their questions short, and we'll have a discussion on this, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds. Okay. I'm going to look to Manager Doyle for an introduction to this. Thank you.
Thank you. We've prepared a short presentation to help explain the report and provide a bit of additional context. Just bear with me while I bring this up. Okay. Thank you. Today's report introduces the recommended rate structure and the specific charges for volumetric billing in North and South Pender Harbor. These recommendations reflect board direction to develop a more equitable, usage-based approach to water billing. The 2025 mock billing phase will allow the community to understand the new structure before actual billing begins in 2026. Just wanted to start with a quick review of how the project has progressed since September 2023. As you can see, this slide here is quite busy. That is reflective of the amount of work that has been done on this project. What I want to highlight is all this work to date, especially the board decisions along the way, have shaped the recommended rate structure and will continue to influence the next steps in this project. These foundational decisions shape the proposed rate structure. We are taking a gradual approach to this transition with a focus on helping the public adapt to the new rate structure and reducing the risk of not collecting enough money to fund the services. The decision to include a consumption allowance provides cost certainty for low volume users and strengthens the incentive to conserve water for others. Finally, the use of an existing provincially administered classification system provides a fair and transparent basis for classifications. The table on this slide shows the 9 distinct categories that can be used to describe every account in North and South Pender Harbor. Categorizing by both property classification and meter size allows for a fair distribution of costs, flexibility for future refinements and expansions, and simple inclusion in the water rates and regulations bylaw update later this year. This simple structure is ideal for North and South Pender Harbor, where 95% of all users are residential properties with 3/4 inch or smaller water meters. I understand this slide was a bit confusing in the report, so I want to cover it. The base charges associated with each meter size align with industry benchmarks and internal data. Simply put, the life cycle cost of a 1-inch meter is approximately 1.3 times as much as a 3/4 inch or smaller meter, and so on. As such, the recommended base charges reflect this. We did not propose any variation in charges across the classifications because there is no difference in the cost to provide water based on property classifications. It is not more expensive to supply water to a business compared to a farm. The sum of all the base charges recommended by this report aim to collect 80% of the revenue for each water service. Now that we've accounted for the 80% of the revenue, the remaining 20% is to be recovered through consumption charges. I want to quickly clarify terminology using the analogy of pumping gas at a gas station. The amount of fuel that is purchased is the billable consumption. The cost per liter is the volumetric rate, and the total bill is the consumption charge. For water services, the cost of the water service is predetermined, that's the operations budget, and therefore the volumetric rate is tied to the volume of billable consumption. A consumption allowance reduces the volume of billable consumption and increases the volumetric rate. The chart on the right-hand side of your screen shows Pender Harbor water use in 2024. The light blue represents the volume of water used that would have fallen within the proposed allowance. This consumption would be included in the base charges. The dark blue shows the volume of water used in each quarter that would be subject to consumption charges. This is the volume of water that we could bill for to recover the 20% of revenue. Given that the consumption allowance has considerable implications, I wanted to cover some of the benefits. The 46 cubic meter per quarter allowance, which is approximately 500 liters per day, is grounded in household consumption data and census data. It covers basic needs like bathing, laundry, and cooking. It provides cost certainty for lower volume users while incentivizing heavier users to reduce consumption. And this allowance can be reviewed and should be reviewed annually and adjusted as residents become more efficient with their water consumption. The proposed consumption allowance and the rate structure and the rates were validated through a robust analysis of historical data. This slide shows how the proposed consumption allowance would have reduced the volume of billable consumption by about 40% for both water services in 2024. We've recommended a volumetric rate of $4 per cubic meter. This was selected through a sensitivity analysis to ensure sufficient revenue, even if billable consumption declines due to conservation, leak resolution, or weather. We cannot predict the weather, but we do need to plan for it and the other uncertainties that influence future consumption. Weather is one of many factors that influence the volume of water that is consumed, and this impacts the revenue that is recovered through consumption charges. This uncertainty, the many uncertainties, reinforce the importance of a stable base charge and conservative volumetric rates. Ongoing analysis will be used to inform future adjustments to the rate structures and rates. The rates proposed reflect a low tolerance for the risk that revenue will not meet the cost of the service. Our communications have already begun and will expand through 2025. Some key messages that we'd like to highlight are that low volume users can save money compared to the existing rate structure, and that those cost savings are funded through the higher costs imposed on high volume users. Just a quick timeline to wrap it up. This slide provides a line of sight looking forward from today. For the remainder of 2025, staff will work to incorporate the direction received from today's committee into mock bills, bylaw updates, and preparing residents and staff for the transition to volumetric billing in 2026. Staff are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Manager Doyle, for that great presentation. I am going to look to the area director, Director Lee. If you'd stop sharing your screen, please.
Actually, my questions are just generic to the process. Anyways, I didn't need to go first, but thank you, Chair. Anyways, it was appreciated. I do have questions, though. There still will be a frontage fee. This was, we're simply talking about the usage part of the bill, just for clarification. And I saw yes, a nod, so I'm good. And then the other question I have, well, it's kind of twofold, in case it's an answer to my own question. Why do we charge different for bigger pipes when we're actually billing for water?
I think Manager Doyle has an answer to that.
Yeah, thank you. As mentioned in the previous presentation, the meters themselves cost significantly more as they get larger. And so the fixed costs associated with the physical infrastructure itself, the meter, is baked into that base charge difference across meter sizes.
Follow up?
But back to my first question, we charge a frontage fee for hardware. So wouldn't that cover the larger meters?
Thank you for the question. As the frontage fee is not scaled on anything, it's universal, it's a land charge. It does not account for the meter size. And so if we included the costs associated with the meters themselves, it is less equitable to the lower, smaller meters would then subsidize the larger meter costs. And so this is a part of the infrastructure costs that are not captured in that land charge parcel tax. They are funded through the operations budget.
To your satisfaction? No, another question?
It's actually the same question, a
Same question, go
clarification,
ahead.
if I may. Generally, when you have a larger meter, it's indicative of business, and we usually charge business a higher rate. That's not going to be the case here? Or is that going to be the case here? Sorry.
Thank you. The initial rate structure that we proposed does not have any variation in the volumetric rate across different classifications or meter sizes, but that is something that can be explored later on if that's desired.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll get back to you if you have more questions. Director McMahon.
Thank you. You know, off the cuff, it seems like volumetric billing is a really simple concept, but when you dive into the details of how to do it, it turns out to be somewhat less simple.
I agree.
And I have a lot of questions, but one off the top is on page 43, the estimate that it takes 17 staff members over 2,800 hours to facilitate the transition. Is that just for North and South Pender? And if it is, then how much of this can be applied to the larger project when we take on Chapman?
CAO Pro, I see you readying your microphone.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, that is the quantification that we've estimated for North and South Pender in preparing for the mock billing up to this point, and through the transition through to the bylaw approval and implementation in 2026. So it's a multi-year project, so those are not just included for 2025. The information, yes, will inform the regional system. So this is our test pilot for as we go forward, but it won't mirror the same because they are very different systems. These are quite small and separate, and so they don't quite have the same economies of scale as the regional system will, but most certainly the lessons learned will inform the regional implementation.
Thank you. Satisfactory answer? Very good. I'm going to go to Director Inkster.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to applaud staff for stepping up. It was almost like your thesis defense or a court case. You were defending yourself, and I appreciate that. And I'll tell you why. Because this is a big step for us to be doing this in the region, and we're going to get a lot of questions on this program. And I have said before, and I would have liked to have not done mock billing and have implemented this program in Sechelt next year, because we're hearing a lot about people that are being careful and being environmentally friendly and not using as much water. We're hearing a lot about that, and that people are recognizing our need. But yet we still will have to bring in this program, and it will most likely tell people how they're actually saving water. And that's the key part to this, is that people may now realize that they're not actually saving the water that they thought they they were. And so that helps with that. So I look forward to that, to tell people to use less water and or to bill those higher users. And that may be changing how some people use water, and they may have to adjust downwards. So that's an important piece to this. Like I said, I'd love to see it next year in Seashell. But my question with the overall program that we've implemented and the amount of staff hours it's taken, we know of another example of this kind of program, BC Hydro. They did an energy program, and they retrofitted a number of, we know this as homeowners, they retrofitted a number of our systems about, 8 to 10 years ago. I always wonder if it took them this many staff hours, this much technology, and this much mock billing plans, or are we just more politically sensitive locally than a large conglomerate that just does what they want? Thanks.
Thank you, Director Inkster. Does staff want to take a stab at that?
Point of order, everybody. I can't hear a thing.
Sorry.
Someone's not using their mic.
Sorry, Director White. We have a question from Director Inkster, which is, would you like to state your question again, please?
Yeah, it was just a quick follow-up because it doesn't sound like we're going there, but I was just wondering why, there's must be some challenges with the local level with implementing a program compared to a company like BC Hydro that did this similar a number of years ago. And we all get BC Hydro bills, and they're there's quite a lot of information on those bills that they're obviously garnering from reading all of our systems remotely. So similar program, I see it. Thanks.
I'm not sure if there's an answer for that. So I'm going to move on to Director Stanford unless staff has anything to say. No? Okay. Director Stanford, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It is somewhat similar lines to Director Inkster, but great report. It took a few tries to go through it and really understand the implications. And I think that the side impact of this is also going to be not just a greater awareness of individuals and their water consumption, but a lot more review of our activity in our water projects, because we are making that jump to say this is how much the water costs. Anything above that, you can work with, but we are stating this is how much it costs to get water to your house. They're going to want to know why it costs what it does. So I think the communication of how this moves forward is going to be so critical, because it is complicated and it isn't going to suddenly reduce people's cost of water. And it's sort of building that understanding in that there's still huge expenses associated with this, despite people doing the right thing. And that's the part I'm trying to thread in my own mind, is how to communicate this over the long term.
Thank you. And I know that if we reduce our water use to zero, we still have to pay for transmission because we have to keep up the system. Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yes, I am barking up the same tree as Director Stanford. Staff dug me out the graphs of water use per property from the November 14th, 2024 report on high water users, which is really helpful because it shows what percentage of users are, say, under 100 liters a day and what percentage are in the next 100 liter range and so forth. I hear regularly from people who tell me that they only use, 12 thimblefuls of water a day. So why should they be paying for the next door neighbor who's pressure washing their siding? And when I look at the use per property in Pender, what I see is that 33% of the users use less than 100 liters a day, which is not a lot. So the allowance of 500 liters per day is a very generous allowance. And I think there is an expectation out there among the very frugal water users that they should somehow get a break, like my safe driver discount for ICBC. And I'd like to understand why we haven't looked at doing that and what are the implications? Because I realize that it's probably complicated, but I'm just curious about why that isn't an option we've looked at now and whether we could look at it in the future.
Manager Doyle.
Thank you, through the chair. I would say that the proposed rate structure does provide a break for low water users. And as consumption patterns adapt and normalize over time to the new system of billing, we would expect to lower the consumption allowance and increase that, like reduce the number of people who get a break per se, because they would be the more efficient users. So this is the gradual approach where we're avoiding a snap decision to a completely new paradigm.
Thank you. I'm going to move along to Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Director McMahon actually stole a fair bit of the thunder I wanted to comment on because, for those users who are being careful with their water consumption, based on the 500 liters per day, they'll see a little bit of a break in the base charge, but they're not going to see a big change right away. Just thinking about it from my own perspective, this is going to be the next board's problem to solve. Just thinking about timing and the way this is going to roll out. But I could almost see it as being part of the process of the annual rate setting as something that the board can look at, whether the consumption charge, like the base level consumption rates are where they should be or where they should be adjusted. So I'm not really too concerned about it trying to solve the problem now when people are on a completely different system. This is going to be iterative. This is just the first step. I shared Director Inkster's comments about, it would have been great if we could have just dropped this on people and made it happen. But knowing the sensitivity around water and costs of water, I think this is the right approach to sort of ease people into it. Thank you. No questions, just comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Director White, you have some insight.
Thank you. I can comment a bit on Town of Gibson's experience here. I first want to just start out by slightly off to say, as a point of privilege, I am passing on my regrets. I'm going to have to leave this meeting at the 2-hour point. We've got a couple people coming in to Town Hall related to federal advocacy that I have to attend to. So sorry about that. But I just wanted, before that happens, I've got a question too, but add the comments that I think, the concerns of the board here are really valid. Over here at the Town of Gibson's at a different water system, we are your biggest cheerleader in moving forward with this process and doing so in a very rational way and doing so in a way that as directors are expressing, people are encouraged to conserve water. So that's all great. Just related to the kind of the communications piece and the huge expenses, maybe it's because I've been in this culture of meters and Gibsons for years, and I think maybe other people might convey similar experiences here. I still find water really cheap when I look at my bill. And I know you're hearing from a lot of people, and Gibson's did too 10 years ago, that kind of feel entitled that water should be free. But when you look at it as such a crucial element to our existence, in addition to the other things we decide to use it on, and all the infrastructure costs that are involved, which I think the board can help communicate to the public when it comes to these meters and the cost of larger meters versus smaller ones that need to be paid up front here. So that's why there isn't a lot of flex in the first few years here. And water mains and treatment plants and everything. There's a huge cost here. I'm being called away from my meeting. Sorry about that. So I think that's an important communications point that, sorry, water isn't free. Like there are infrastructure costs that we are having to take on as taxpayers that need to be paid for in these rates. And absolutely in the future, as a couple of you have been discussing, it makes complete sense to, once some of those upfront capital costs are paid, and there's some stability in the system is ensured as staff is brought forward to us, that it makes a lot of sense to kind of look at the yearly rates to increase those incentives to save. The question I have is, there was a policy tool that was raised in the last year in terms of moving high water users over to volumetric early to really enhance that incentivization. The board considered that and decided not to move ahead with it. I'm wondering, considering that this is going to be taking longer, if staff still considers that that's a policy tool that may want to be considered and enacted, because really, I mean, if staff, particularly if the board just gave staff some discretion at saying, hey, some of these, at some level, some of these really high water users, we need to get their use down somehow. How do we do it? Is that still, like, if staff, or if the board gave staff some discretion to enact that by putting people on volumetric early, and it might not be a lot, but it might be a huge savings. Is that still something that could be considered, considering there's more time now?
Thank you for your insight and your questions, and best of luck with your meeting. I'm going to look to Manager Doyle if you have any response to the CFO Pro or CAO Pro timeline, costs.
What I can comment on is, from a timeline perspective, we're on track to the original timeline that we committed to. As far as the implementation of 2 different types of rate structure, we would have to go back to see what the feasibility of that is. I know we do bill volumetrically in some facets, so it could be something that we reconsider as part of when we approach approving the bylaw. So we can get back to the board on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we decided that it was going to be a little disruptive of staff to pursue that. I'm going to go to Director McMahon.
Yeah, I'm still getting my head around implications, and I'm sure I'll figure out some of them a year or 2 from now of the decisions we make now. But the customer classes that are set up here, Pender is mostly residential. So this customer class system makes sense for Pender. But when we get to Chapman, are we going to look at maybe different considerations? For instance, the highest volume user in our system is the hospital, and it is essentially a nonprofit. So would we have a different rate structure for commercial use than nonprofit use? Or would there be a way that we could identify that because we want to incentivize the hospital to save water, but at the same time we recognize they're providing an essential service, and we don't want to overcharge ourselves essentially for that usage. So are we going to look at different potential customer classes? And then in the future, for instance, there's been a lot of talk about regional districts bringing in business licensing, and heaven forfend that we do it. But if we do it, then we would have the opportunity to distinguish between business and non-business use. So could we bring that in as a customer class?
Thank you, Director McMahon, for giving staff a heads up on all these considerations. And if you have any input on that, the board would love to hear from you.
Thank you to the chair. When we begin developing rate structures for regional water system, I think there is flexibility offered by this rate structure to expand the classification systems or to create other granularity inside, especially the non-residential classification system. And that's something that we'll explore when we get there. Most of our effort to date has been focused on North and South Pender.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendations as on page 33.
And we have a seconder. And do we have any discussions on this? I do not see any hands, so I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Very good. As I said, this is a really technical report, and there's lots to read up on, should you wish to. We're going to go to 4.4, the report for decision on the corporate work plan. Who have we got? I do believe that the CAO would be our first point of contact for that. And it looks like it's the entire senior leadership team that's involved in this report. Thank you, staff, for your work. And can you give us the Coles notes on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So first, I want to just acknowledge the extensive amount of work that has come to this second iteration of the corporate work plan, which was first seen by the board in late March. And so this particular iteration provides some of the updates that we were given direction to bring back for consideration for the committee. We've also incorporated a reporting tool into the document, providing comments and a green light, yellow light, red light, and we've provided some framework as to what considerations go into those particular factors. And so some of the decisions for you today is to provide some feedback on the various appendixes. We've also provided an outlook on what the departmental work plans look like, which better aligns resources to the departments. And so it's a little bit different than the overall work plan, which focuses on the board's overall priorities. And so, again, acknowledging this is an iterative process, we see that the next iteration will be more of a focus on a reporting tool because we would have dealt with the various housekeeping issues to get us to this point. So with that, the senior management team is here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
And we're off to the races. Director McMahon, you have some input on this.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate the color coding. When it comes to corporate work plan, I'm now getting a reaction of intense panic. But the color coding kind of, yeah, it was very soothing. It was relieving to my sense of incipient panic to see that a lot of things that, in fact, fall below the red line are in reasonable progress. So I thank you for that very much. I'm a little unclear about how far we are intending today to dive into this. Some of this is referred to the Policy Review Committee. Some of it's referred to the Corporate Policy Review. And are we going to try today to further review and prioritize remaining outstanding directives?
Yeah, CAO.
Yes, that was significant contemplation when drafting this report, because if we actually had taken the recommendations in the various appendix, it would be multiple pages of recommendations. Some of the suggested options for the committee for consideration would be if there are exceptions to what staff have provided as recommendations, then we can deal with the exceptions. Otherwise, if the committee is in agreement with some of the recommendations that are put in there on the status of the various reports, then we can progress with updating the corporate work plan as presented in those various appendixes. So that would be a way and means to navigate it more succinctly.
Thank you. Before I go to Director Lee, I have a question about delays and abandonment of projects that are recommended. Will that open up more capacity for projects that are below the red line to rise above?
It may. It depends where those specific projects are being resourced from. Most certainly, we know that the Infrastructure Services Division has the lion's share because those are the board's strategic focus areas. And so one of the other things that we wanted to make sure that was clear was that just when projects get completed and or potentially if some items get abandoned, depending on where they are in the realm, it'll have various impacts. So we'd have to see what that looks like in the next iteration of the report. And one would assume it does, but it's not a one-to-one relation. So I just want to set expectations there before we clarify that.
Thank you. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I have several questions, but first of all, I'd like to say I really do appreciate the color coding of the ones above the line and the fact that all the dates are there. That was great. It made it so much easier. I have a question about the ones that are below the lines in the departmental, but being worked, which I think I understand. I just wanted to make sure I did. They're being worked because they're unique to that department and they don't need corporate help to get them done, so they're carrying on with them. Did I summarize that somewhere close?
Go ahead, CAO.
So there's various factors why we continue to work on various projects that are below the line. Some of the factors that we brought forward in the last iteration, and which really sets out the proverbial rule book, is that we are substantially into the project. So there has been procurement that has been completed and/or the project is nearing completion. Within the departmental work plan, that there is capacity that we've identified, so we're going to continue to progress those. Or there's various risks associated with not completing it. So it really is a recognition that we are going to still be working on a few of those projects that have fallen below the line because we've introduced this tool, and it will just calibrate as we continue to complete those projects and refine our focus to the ones that are being prioritized.
Thank you. Director McMahon.
Yeah, I read through the recommendations in the annexes, and they're mostly very straightforward. Page 63, there are no recommendations. Is that a work in progress?
Interesting. Lots of blank boxes there.
Thank you. So that's just a timing issue of the staff report, so we'll provide an update to that in the next iteration.
Very good. So I'm not sure if we're expected to create any motions based on this document. Mr. Lee, Director Lee, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. I must say I pressed the button thinking we were going to have a motion to accept the recommendations. And if that's what we're up to, I had a question on number 4, in that there's a bunch of old board motions, and I was wondering if you were looking for the board to nuke or say they need to go forward before we do the motion.
Go ahead, CAO.
If the committee is amenable to the recommendations within each annex, then we would probably provide a subsequent motion that the items provided in annex or appendix number, whenever is approved as presented. And if there are certain ones that directors disagree with, then we can discuss the merits of that and consequences with the department heads.
Oh, Director McMahon, go ahead.
Don't mind me, I'm still mildly confused, but I'm just to clear the decks, I would be happy to move the recommendations 1, 2, and 3 on page 46. And then we can dither about recommendation 4 at our leisure.
I see a seconder for that recommendation. Any discussion on this motion on the floor? I don't see any, so I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Very good. All right, so Director McMahon, would you like to bring up number 4?
I'll be honest, there were a lot of agendas and I didn't get to, I'm trying to find the further recommendations that are right at the back of the pile, but I have not been through them in detail. So, I would want to review a little bit. That I believe it starts on page 90. That's a lot of them. Yeah, it does start remaining outstanding directives, and I'm sure that most of them can be flushed, but I'm personally not quite ready at the moment to especially given the time. Yeah, we're already at 11:45 and we've got more business to do. And can we bring this back to a future meeting for consideration or future committee?
So there's a question for the corporate officer. Is it pertinent for us to delay this work on the 4th recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. So just to understand the question, it's specific to the directives, is what I'm hearing. And the recommendation on page 46 is, well, there's actually 2 related to directives. Unless we are provided alternate direction, that would be our intended action. But are you suggesting that you would like more time to go through them more thoroughly and broadly than what the recommendations are proposed on page 46? And you would like to bring them back to it?
Point of order, Chair. Can I suggest we just take a 2-minute break?
Very good. We're going to take a 2-minute break and we will get back to you at some time in the future. Thank you and welcome back, and thank you for your patience. We have a new motion that we are going to read in. Can I get my co-chair, my vice chair, Director Toth, to read that motion for us?
Thank you, Chair. And so the replacement motion for number 4 would be, and further that the remaining outstanding directives be referred to a subsequent committee of the whole for review.
Where are we? We are currently at 4.6 community services, no, infrastructure services 4.5. That's okay. Page 104, it's a report from infrastructure services. Are there any questions related to this report for staff? I see Director McMahon has her hand up. Go ahead.
I don't have a question actually, but I would like to thank staff for the update on the Wood Creek Park wastewater plant situation. Thank you. I have passed that along to the neighborhood association.
Very good. Well, moving right along. Oh, Director Lee, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
In a very similar vein, I would like to thank staff for their very clear recommendation, or very clear information on where the projects are and where they are. I was so happy to see that. I am cutting it out and saving it. Thank you.
That's good. It's going on Director Lee's fridge. Are there any other questions or comments about this report? I don't see any, so let's move along to Community Services Department report. Actual 4.6. Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. We have a question from Director McMahon.
Once again, I have a couple of comments. The community hall booking procedure, I've had a couple of instances lately to book community halls, and it is so vastly improved from what it was a few years ago that it is almost easy. It's really a lot better. So I appreciate that very much. And the volunteer support for trail maintenance, I 2 weeks ago, I happened to bike through the Sunnyside Chester Connector Trail, and it was like, wow, this is such an improvement. I had no idea there was work going on, and so it was the parks crew and volunteers from my community got in there and did just fabulous job of upgrading that trail. So I want to thank everybody involved in doing that and say that this kind of initiative is really popular with the community, and so I'd like to see more similar initiatives and whatever we can do to publicize them as good news stories from the SCRD. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I would like to, I'm looking at the volunteer fall work party for Dakota Ridge, and I noticed that it has dropped over the years on page 145 of the agenda. And I had an idea that when these type of events are organized, if you could include the board in a loop, and perhaps we could join a work party. If that would be, I know that some of the board would be more than happy to get out and volunteer some time on some of these trails and such. But besides that, no other questions on this report. I don't see any other hands up, so I'm gonna, oh, you have something else to say?
Yeah, I was really fascinated in the sales trends for the different transit fare products. And that's going to be interesting to watch to see how that evolves, because it's still fairly new that we have, these various different products. I'm ashamed to say, I still have not gotten my UMO card because I don't take the bus that often, and it's just so handy to put a toonie in the slot that I have not gotten around to it. But I'll be watching the stats as they roll out.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to move forward to item 4.7, Planning and Development Q1 report. This is for information. If anyone has any questions or comments about this, go ahead. I see nothing, so I'm going to move on to the last report on our open agenda, item 4.8, the Emergency Protective Services Department Q1 report. And seeing no need for discussion on this, I'd like to thank staff for creating these reports. I know it's a bit of work, but it allows the public to have a look into the workings of our organization. There's Director McMahon. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a short comment. I pick through these reports and I take out little statistics, and I wow the the community association with them. So last night, it was the community association meeting. So I was able to tell them how many large appliances were dropped off at the landfill in Q1, and they were all very impressed. So it's fun. And I sometimes do pop quizzes too.
That's very good. And in my newsletter, I also put links to these agendas. So, to explain some of the work that we've been doing. Seeing nothing else here, we have no communications. We have no new business. We do have an in-camera agenda in front of us that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91E and 2B of the Community Charter. I see a move. Do I have a second? I see a second. All in favor? Very good. All right, we'll be back with the open agenda at the end of this. I'm going to look to the Welcome back to the open session of the Committee of the Whole meeting, and I'm looking at the agenda, and there's nothing else but adjournment. Do I have a motion? Do I have a seconder? All in favor? Very good. We are now adjourned. Thank you.